What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. This is your weekly reactor hunt video. I do one of these every week for the First Descendant because every week on Tuesday they essentially reset and change the location where you can farm specific configurations of reactors, thereby encouraging you to do different activities to essentially find whichever reactor you're looking for. Now this video covers the week from the 3rd of December till the 10th of December. In other words, this is the last one of these before we see season 2 launch. And in a way, it kind of like makes sense because there's not a lot to do for us in terms of reactor hunting this week. Not because there's another reactor change coming in season 2, but rather because there's not really great options this week. Nonetheless, we do have 2 farms, which I do want to share with you. Now you might be wondering, how do I gather this information? Well, first things first, we can create a table like this which shows every single descendant in the game right now with what is thought to be their best in slot reactor configuration, meaning their element and the type of reactor. We can then also change that table into something like this, and this basically shows you that you can farm certain descendants together with other descendants in terms of like them using the same reactor. Good example would be Izimo and Lepic. Both of them use fire and tech, since their damage dealing abilities are fire and tech abilities. So when you're farming for an Izimo reactor, you're also farming for a Lepic reactor, which is cool and it cuts down a lot on the effort. Now, having that information in hand, it allows you to use the system in the game to actually find out where you can go farm for reactor. But of course, I'm going to tell you that as well. You can access this by pressing M and then F, or specifically going to your map and then saying difficulty level rewards at the bottom. And then you can essentially just search the type that you're looking for. So like, for example, if we wanted to check if there was a good Izimo Lepic reactor this week, we would go fire, we would go tech, and we would see there's mountaintops and remnant. Now, technically speaking, there are a ton of places you can farm every week for reactors, but in these videos, I try to suggest the most lucrative activities that you can do, which by my testing give you the most amount of reactors per hour. Now, before we actually get into the 2 farms that I want to show you this week, we do also have to discuss Keelan and if there's any prep that you can do for him, since he is the new descendant that is basically dropping with the start of season 2. Of course, we also have ultimate Sharen, but it is thought that she would use the same configuration that she currently has, which is electric and fusion. That's likely possibly to change, but we'll only know that once we actually get her in our hands and see what her transcendent mods do to her skills. But Keelan, on the other hand, we have had his skills revealed and what type of skills they are. So that leads us to kind of like start thinking to what kind of reactor would be best suited for him. Now, unfortunately, the answer is not simple, and I'll explain this quickly to you. So Keelan's 4 skills are actually split between 2 different types. So his first skill is called Void Corrosion, and it is a fusion skill, and it's a main damage skill, if I can call it that. Then his second skill is Onslaught, which is a singular skill, and it is a damage skill, but it's also considered a mobility skill, since this allows you to move and sort of like dash across the battlefield quickly. Then his third skill is Septic Gust, which is also a singular skill, and this is definitely a damage skill but also a ramp skill, the ideal being that you apply debuffs, and then because those debuffs and those damage dots are on the enemy, then you apply a secondary effect. And then last but not least, his 4th ability is called Tremor, and this is once again a fusion ability. So as you can see, 1 and 4 are fusion, 2 and 3 are singular. Now his 4th ability is another damage ramp ability, which in itself also deals damage, and it's also a way for you to stack his dash if there are no enemies or no debuffs present around you, meaning you can give yourself 3 stacks of your dash to sort of like just go across the battlefield quicker. Now I have my theories about which reactor would be best for Keelan, and I just want you to hear me out. I think it's possible that Keelan might be the first descendant, and of course we don't know what his transcendent mods look like. It's possible that his transcendent mods can, for example, make all his abilities singular, or make all of his abilities fusion, depending on which transcendent mod you put in, and that will solve a lot of the problems for us. But I also think it's possible that Keelan might be a descendant that specifically uses a kind of reactor depending on what you want to do. For example, I think it's possible that his mobbing setup and the transcendent mod that follows with that would be more suited to perhaps being toxic and singular. That would empower your second ability, which is your dash, which deals a fair amount of damage. And in the footage that we've seen of the game, we've seen him dash through dungeons and basically kill the enemies just by dashing into them. And then it will also empower your third ability, which is essentially a mass AoE and also a dot. So it kind of seems like it's something that's very well suited for dealing with the rank and file enemies of the game. And then I think his bossing setup might actually be fusion. Now, again, this is pure speculation. I'm not telling you to go out and farm either one of these two reactors, because that would be pure speculation on my part right now, but I do think I might be onto something. So fusion then would empower his first ability, and more importantly his fourth ability, which is essentially like a massive damage ramp as well. So it's possible that this might be the case. Either which way, the sad thing is there are no decent places this week for us to farm either of those two types. So whether we were looking for singular, there are no singular farms this week, up until obviously when we see the DLC drop or the season drop, let me rather say that. And if we look for fusion, we can see there's also none of that. So unfortunately, if you haven't been preparing and haven't been saving some decent singular and fusion reactors, I luckily have, so I'm happy with myself. But if you haven't, then you're kind of like out of luck until the season 2 drops, and maybe there's some other places where you can get the reactors from there. That being said, it's not to say that you can't find these reactors anywhere else. You can just, instead of actually just focus farming them like this specifically, you can also just do activities and get lucky in the open world. It's entirely possible, but this does mean that there's not a specific zone that you can target farm either a singular or fusion this week. What is crazy is that if we look ahead, which we can also do, we look to next week, we'll see that next week we could also only farm toxic tech. So that's kind of wild. It means we're kind of like locked out of farming for this dude for a while now. In the following week, I think we have dimension. So it does seem like it's going to be quite a while until we can actually farm for him, which is pretty crazy. But again, like I said, you can also, find these reactors in other places out in the world, of course. This week, for example, it's like a dimension week, so it's pretty fucking nuts. But yes, I just wanted to do a short little section on Keelan as well, because I'm sure people are wondering if there's something they can do to prepare for him. So then, the first farm I want to show you this week is actually for our boy Blair. If you are looking for a general mountings for Blair this week, you are in luck. Now, Blair uses a burning phase reactor, which is fire dimension, as you can see here. That's because all of his damage abilities are dimension abilities. And so, as I said, if you're looking for a general mounting, of course, general mountings are some of the sexiest guns in the game. Python, you've got Thunder Cage, you've got Enduring Legacy. So those are some of the more powerful options that you can field in the game. And if you're looking for a general mounting for Blair, I got you. So if we go over here and we say fire and we go to dimension, that is going to give us the Vermilion Waste over here. And when we pop this sucker open, this is in Agna Desert. And if you do this outpost over here in what is colloquially known as the Valby method, then you're able to get a shit ton of these reactors to hopefully drop. So the Valby method just means that you essentially do this with Valby. You can do it with Bunny as well, although the main point stays the same. What you're trying to do is not increase the radius or the range of your third ability. So you want to keep your water as thin as possible, and you want to empower it enough so that it can actually one-tap the enemies, but not deal enough damage to the boss if he accidentally wanders into your stream. And you can basically pull him back by sort of shooting him from the other side if he wanders into your goo, or you can use your fourth ability to, basically pull him out. Now, if you're looking for the exact build that I use with Val before this, I do have that on the channel. I will remember to link that as well in the description of the video, as well as in the first comment. So if that's something you're looking for. But this activity here also gives you a decent amount of character XP, weapon proficiency, golden kuipers. So it's not a waste at all. And hopefully you can get some decent Blair reactors with general mountings to drop. Next up, if you're looking for non-attribute singular reactors, aka materialized singularity reactors for Enzo, Yujin, and Luna, you're also in luck this week. Now, this is an impact mounting, meaning it covers weapons like, for example, Wave of Light. You've got Perforator. Some of those you might not really enjoy. Blue Beetle I'm not a fan of, but a very good impact mounting is Nazastras. So Nazastress is also covered by this mounting, and this is a fantastic debuff weapon. Now, this is for materialized singularity, which is non-attribute singular. So it's not for your garden variety Yujin or Luna. This is for if you are building DPS Yujin, right? Or AoE Yujin, meaning you are trying to use proliferating allergy. And if you put proliferating allergy in, you'll see that it changes the second skill into non-attribute singular. And that's why you would need a non-attribute singular reactor for this if you're building DPS Yujin, AoE Yujin. The same thing for Luna if you're building her with something like Noise Surge. And so therefore you would also need the same reactor for her. Now, if you are looking for this, you're going to go over here, non-attribute, and you're going to choose singular, and you're going to see this area called Rockfall. Rockfall is in Sterile Land and features a very, very famous mission that is really, really easy to do super fast with an AoE character, or Descendant rather, like Bunny. This anticipated ambush point mission can be repeated very fast, has a decent amount of champion enemies that spawn, as well as a yellow bar, and you can essentially just farm this area to your heart's content. It's got decent drops of breakers and stuff like that as well. The XP and proficiency per hour is not as great as some of the other areas in the game, but it's also nothing to sneeze at, and hopefully you can get some decent reactors to also drop from this mission. Now, one last thing before I let you go, I know that's a fan favorite, but you might be thinking, shit, what am I actually supposed to do these last couple of days until season 2 drops? Because it doesn't seem like there's a lot for me to farm for and a lot for me to do. And in a way that is true, because the bottom line is there isn't much going on right now, and mostly you can prepare for season 2 right now. So it could be a good time to do that, or it could be a good time to play some other games and come back fresh for season 2 when it drops. If however you plan on sticking around, there are a couple of things you can do to prepare yourself for season 2, which are some of the things that I'm doing. Of course, generally making sure that you have a decent supply of Kuiper and gold is always a good idea. Both of these can be found in big amounts by still continuing to do like the normal sort of rotation of activities like invasions. These disrupt invasions give decent amounts of gold and Kuiper as well. Of course, the modules that you get in them, you can also dismantle, which gives you even more Kuiper. Speaking of modules, it's also a good idea to kind of like stack yourself up on almost like full, focusing specifically on Transcendent mods, as many duplicates of those as you can have, as well as possibly gold and purple. The reason for that being that is we will get new modules, and those modules, as usual, of course, you can combine into them, right? So the point is we will have new modules added to here, and you can use combine to combine into those modules, hopefully with some luck. And that means that you'll lessen the need for you to go out and, go grind them. It definitely seems that the developer has sort of taken steps to make it sure that there's multiple different ways of getting modules, and it seems like generally speaking it's relatively easy to grind up some. Maybe you get lucky with some to drop, and then whatever you get that drops that you don't need, that are duplicates, you combine those and you get lucky and you get some more. So that's basically what I would say you should focus on. Of course, super good idea to make sure you have as many, energy activators and catalysts available that you potentially will be using to actually level up Keelan and, develop him further, level up Ultimate Sharen, develop them further, develop the new, ultimate weapons. So yeah, just in general, the same thing that you've been pretty much doing all this time. The only thing is you're going into hermit crab mode now, and you're basically saving everything and you're not spending anything. So just to make sure that you have as many disposable resources available to you when season 2 drops. But that's basically it. I think I have 1 or 2 more videos coming out that should hit before season 2 drops. But other than that, I will definitely see you guys as soon as the hammer goes down, ready to go onto the void vessel and cause a massive amount of shit. Other than that, as usual, fucking cheers.